So let's get into this first story, actually, because the issue pertaining to abortion rights and abortion access in this country is one. I'm sorry, we cannot put down this football until these posts are completely reversed. In half the states in this country, women, girls, people with the ability to get pregnant do not have full autonomy over their bodies, over the kinds of medical care that they receive, especially when they get pregnant. It is some real shit out here, y'all. And no, hold on. Okay, let's start with some good news. Let's start with the good news. So let's run that first story, that WBAP.com. I don't think this is Black Alliance for Peace, although it would be awesome if Black Alliance for Peace had its own news outlet, which is interesting. But here we go. So this is coming out of the San Antonio area. Bexar County judge tosses first bounty hunter abortion lawsuit. What does that mean? Let's go to Andrea Grimes, really good Substack, who does a very good roundup newsletter of the abortion news across the country and internationally. And what Andrea basically surmises is that the fact that this is the first of its kind under Texas's SB 8 bill, where regular citizens, regular ass fucking snitches, can go file a lawsuit against someone that either provided abortion services or helped to facilitate the means for a person to receive abortion services within the state of Texas. And this bill, pardon me, this law, SB 8, does not take into consideration whether or not the pregnant person in question has been raped or has been a victim of incest. They don't care about any of that. Okay. If you help to make it so that a pregnant person is no longer pregnant via the medical route, um, Texas says you could sue people for 10 G's, right? So this first of its kind lawsuit, thankfully, was thrown the fuck out on Andrea Grimes' Substack. Says the big takeaway is that the first and only lawsuit so far attempting to take advantages of Texas SB 8, the quote bounty hunter slash any motherfucker, shout out to Andrea, I love this, any motherfucker anywhere law, was thrown out by a state judge. And the lawsuit, interestingly enough, was brought by a person not even residing in Texas, a Chicago attorney who describes himself as being pro-life. They tried to sue abortion provider or doctor, Dr. Alan Baird, who penned an op-ed in the Washington Post shortly after Texas's SB 8 law went into effect, where he admitted to giving abortion services to a person 5 weeks, roughly or so. I think it was weeks, maybe it was days. I think it was weeks, though. Shortly after Texas's SB 8 bill passed. So that's what that lawsuit was about, and it was tossed out. The judge apparently said that this is not this law is not going to be used in this way, but in fact it probably is going to be used in that way more often, right? So we'll see. But that was a good sign that the judge tossed out the first bounty hunter lawsuit. But the problem is, the issue still remains, is that women and girls do not have access to abortion services, okay? And unfortunately, there is a case out of Mississippi that we're going to take a look at, and I'm gonna get content warning. Content warning. This is for this teen girl is a survivor of sexual assault. She was made pregnant by the assault. She and her family, her parents, mother and father, live in Mississippi, and her family was completely unaware of Mississippi's new abortion restrictions. They had no clue. You guys are going to be blown away when you see this story. But it just underscores again why we have to keep up the reproductive justice fight for everybody because you just never know whom and when you will need these services. Like, these are life-saving services. These are life-changing services in a number of ways. And for people who become pregnant not by consent, this is a lifeline, right? For not having to subject yourself to all kinds of lifetime trauma, and having to look at the product of your assault on a daily basis. I mean, just unreal. And these states, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Louisiana, I mean, all these places are subjecting women and girls to this unnecessary heartache and unbearable sort of decisions that they are forced to consider, and then having to make the decision and whether or not they're going to have the actual resources to follow through on their medical care. So this piece was from WAPT in Mississippi. And like I said, I'm giving you guys a content warning. I'm telling you what it's about. It's not easy, but I think it's important that we see these kinds of stories because these are people's real life scenarios that they're dealing with. Okay. And like, this is not just some political football here, like where the right wing won. They won overturning Roe v. Wade. Well, they have overturned a lot of people's fucking lives as a result and put undue hardship upon folks who are already in desperate situations to begin with. So let's look at this piece from WAPT, everybody.
Only on 16 WAPT, a family going through the unimaginable. Their daughter impregnated after being raped. They faced a gut-wrenching decision and decided to end the pregnancy. But what happens to a rape victim in Mississippi where there are no abortion clinics? We're disguising the identity of the parents and their daughter, but this is their story.
Being in the room where she was at, explaining how she got pregnant was where my world really shattered.
We're calling them Jane and John Doe to protect their young teenage daughter. They told us about sitting with sheriff's deputies as she detailed how she was raped.
When did you guys start to try to figure out what you were all gonna do?
Immediately.
I mean, it wasn't no trying to wait and waste time or anything like this. Our first instinct is her future.
The Does say they'd never supported abortion, but the trauma their daughter experienced convinced them it was the right choice.
Do you guys keep up with what was happening with abortion laws in Mississippi? Did you even know?
No.
We didn't until after we was trying to find places that would, and they told us if we would have knew about it at least 3 days ahead that we could have got an abortion in Mississippi.
Mississippi's only abortion clinic closed July 6th in the wake of the Supreme Court decision in Mississippi's case to overturn Roe v. Wade. State law allows abortions in cases of rape if you can find a doctor willing to do the procedure, but the Does didn't know where to turn.
I called my OB, the one that delivered my babies. And I explained my situation to him. It was the ugliest feeling having to explain to the doctor that delivered your child that she was raped. And then him having to tell you that he can't do anything to help. He gave me the number to Louisiana clinic.
The Louisiana clinic was also closed. Volunteers told Jane Doe to try New Mexico. That's where Mississippi's abortion clinic relocated.
I called the New Mexico place. It was just too far when I Googled it.
The closest clinic Jane Doe could find was in Illinois, Planned Parenthood, Fairview Heights, a 7.5-hour drive. Jane Doe called.
She's seen the severity of the nature and she squeezed her in. She told me the cost, $15.95.
Jane didn't know where she would find that kind of money.
We tried. It was 2 weeks. We tried. I booked our hotel. That was close to $500, so it was close to $2,000. That's not including food, gas. The funds was the hardest to come up with.
We have seen an increase of nearly or a little over 300% in demand from folks coming from outside of our bi-state area.
Dr. Colleen McNicholas is the chief medical officer for Planned Parenthood's St. Louis region, of which the Fairview Heights Clinic is a part. Her clinic is seeing a rush of families like the Does. Since June, the average wait time for an abortion here has increased from 2 to 3 days to 2 to 3 weeks.
We are now seeing folks 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. And we have a system by which we help folks who are navigating significant logistic barriers and helping them figure out how they're actually going to get to us.
The Does requested sedation for their daughter during the procedure. They say the most difficult part was when she woke up.
I questioned myself, did I do the right thing? Did I commit a mistake? Was I wrong? Did I just ruin her life? Did I make it better?
The Does say they feel they made the best decision they could for their daughter, but the trauma of the rape she experienced is life-changing.
Well, done scheduled her with 2 different therapists to where they can try to talk to her and get her past it, but I don't never think she'll get past it. She'll learn to cope with it, but it's still gonna be something eating at her for the rest of her life. Life will never be normal again.
The Doe family thought long and hard about whether to share their story. They did it because they wanted other families who might find themselves in a similar situation to know what they went through. As for the suspects in their daughter's case, they are charged with sexual battery.
I know that was a heavy one, everybody, and obviously you guys can understand why that's a story that I wanted to share. First, let me credit the young survivor for coming forward to tell what happened to her. And let me credit her parents. My God, I am so deeply appreciative that this young woman had parents that believed her and parents that supported her. It does not sound like she had parents that tried to chastise or condemn her. It sounded as though they were extremely compassionate and understanding and willing to take quick action to do what needed to be done in order for their daughter's life to be filled with her decisions and her choices, not the choices and decisions that her attackers took from her when they assaulted her. So credit to the family. And they sounded like Black people. I know they had the voices and everything distorted, but I'm like, sounds like Black folks. There's several things. There's a lot of takeaways from this, obviously. So again, praise for the survivor and to her family for doing what needed to be done, in terms of the decision that she decided and they collectively decided to make, for her future. Um, the reason why we need abortion is because there's a lot of reasons why we need abortion, but this just highlights one of the reasons why you need abortion, because there are people being violated against their consent and who are being impregnated with the children, or conception of pregnancy with people who are their assaulters and who are their abusers. No one should be forced to bring anybody's baby into the world, less alone bring into the world a child of somebody who violated you. Okay. There's that. And under this law in Mississippi and in laws in these abortion restrictive states across the country, that's exactly what the fuck these laws sound like they're intended to do. Okay. Like if you don't catch that pregnancy at that 6th week, that 8th week, that 10th, that 12th, that 15th week, the goal sounds like, at least in part, is to force survivors of rape and sexual assault to bring these children into the world. Why? Why does the government want this? Why is this policy? Part of the thing, one of the many nuggets of information in that piece that might have just flown right under the radar is that they missed a cutoff time. Okay, the parents or them and their daughter, had they had notified a doctor 3 days prior to when they started making phone calls, maybe they would have been able to arrange those abortion services. But it was the cutoff of her conception, or of, where she was in her pregnancy, that made it impossible for them to find a doctor in Mississippi that would do that service for her. Okay. What's the other part about this? Because there, like I said, there is a lot. There is a lot. The other part that also jumped out, like I said, there were several parts, and I had them arranged in my brain naturally. The marijuana has disarranged them. That happens sometimes. That happens on occasion. One of the other things about this obviously had to be the distance that these parents were forced to begin exploring about where they could legally take their child. And when you look at the map in America, if you live in a place like Mississippi, yeah, it's gonna be 700 miles at least. They were referring her to Louisiana, and then they said that the clinic in Louisiana closed. If you go to Andrea Grimes dot Substack, in her newsletter roundup this week, she has a piece there linked. I think it's from Time magazine, that talks about the number of abortion clinics that have closed over the past just couple of months. A record amount of abortion clinics are gone. They're no longer available, no longer accessible. So now people who are trying to get this medical care have to drive literally hundreds of miles. And the cost, did you hear mom talk about the service itself was $1,600? Then the hotel was $500. That's not counting gas and food. This is why we support these abortion funds, everybody. This is why we, again, if you're looking for an abortion fund to support, for the month of December, we are supporting the Baltimore Abortion Fund, which again provides a lot of similar services to what that clinic and Planned Parenthood. Well, that didn't sound like they was providing it, but a lot of the abortion funds that we have been supporting here on the channel do help with transportation, do help with childcare, do help with lodging and accommodations. Like, that's why it's important that we support these things. So if you're looking for the link to the Baltimore Abortion Fund, you can find it at the box at the very top of the chat. It's in our link tree. A few bucks, guys. You guys see the overwhelming need for this. And that's right. The other part about that story that jumped out at me, and usually when I always hear, for some reason, I think Jackie Luke Bond sits on my shoulder. And I hear Jackie's voice a lot. But all I heard was Jackie Lukman talking about the lack of political education, the fact that these parents didn't have a clue that these new abortion laws went into place in the state of Mississippi. Who that was kind of telling. And I'm sure part of the reason that maybe, and again, I can't speak overwhelmingly to it, but I don't know how much support the abortion clinics in Mississippi got from the Black community in Mississippi. I'm not saying they didn't get any, but I'm just saying I don't know how much support they got, because it's very churchy. Okay, it's very churchy. And sometimes within that deep Black churchy community, if teenagers get pregnant, regardless of the circumstance, sometimes a lot of them kids is made to be parents at very young and inexperienced ages, because well, you was doing this in the dark, and God said, and the Lord said. And you could hear that conflict in the mother's voice within that piece, talking about she wasn't sure she made the right decision. They said that they don't support abortion, and that's cool. I mean, you can have whatever your religious or political take is about abortion until it's time for you to get one, until it's time for your daughter to get one, right? Then your position on abortion changes, and you have a stake in this. But they always had a stake in it, right? They just weren't aware that they did. And not to say that even if Black Mississippians were very organized around reproductive justice, I mean that the Jackson's Women Health Clinic was going away. Period. Okay, like and yes, I will refer to them people as crackers. Them crackers was ready. Okay, them crackers had been systematically shutting down women's health clinics across the state for decades until they got to just one, and then they shut down the one. So I'm just saying, like, this is a everybody fight, regardless of your religious opinion, regardless if you don't, I don't believe in a boy. Nobody cares what you believe in. Okay, people require these medical services, and there's no good health based reason why these services shouldn't be available everywhere across the country. But just this country's outright contempt for women and for specifically poor women. Big Teal, I seen you in the chat. Big Teal said it. This these laws are disproportionately affecting poor people who do not have the means to travel 700 miles and stay in a hotel for 2 nights and eat and have enough gas to get back home, right? They are making poor people bear children that they cannot afford to support, okay? And that is a very sick criminal system. It is criminal. It's big slavery. It's big slavery energy. Like, no, you have to bear this child. You have to have this baby. Oh, Lord have mercy. What was, oh, okay. I think I did mention that. The indoctrination of I felt the guilt again. Like I said, I felt the guilt coming from the mom. But when she, I'm sure when she looked in her daughter's face and understood the circumstances in which her daughter became pregnant because she was raped, there's no way that a parent can look. Well, I know a lot of them do. God damn it! But a good, there's no way a good parent can look in the face of their child after their child has described to them how they've been traumatized and say, well, that was God's will. So this baby is God's will. And we're going to make you have this baby in something that you're going to have to be attached to for the rest of your life. No, I am so happy and proud for them parents. Not happy, obviously, but I'm happy that that young woman actually did have the kind of parents that she has. I am curious. I honestly, I don't anticipate us getting a lot of details about this sexual assault that the young woman told her parents about, because I'm assuming these are all minors. And that's another thing, guys. That's another thing. Please don't think that these school-aged boys don't know the ins and the outs of rape, and don't think because they're 13 or 14 to 17 that they don't know how to force themselves or coerce potential partners or people that they desire into sex. This is why it's important. You need to have these conversations not only with your daughters, but first and foremostly with your sons, because they are the ones who I personally will be advocating to go to fuck to jail if it turns out that they're rapey pieces of shit. Don't let your son go down for rape. Teach your son about consent. Teach your son that no means no. Teach your son that his unfinished erection is his fucking problem, and that's not the young lady's problem. Nobody gives a goddamn about your hard dick, young man. Go do what you did the previous years of your life. Go in there, go in the bathroom with your lotion, and take care of yourself. Okay? Your erection is not anybody else's problem but your own. Okay? Okay, so please have these conversations with your boys in addition to your daughters. Most importantly, have them with your boys, because again, I'm going to advocate for your boys to go to fuck to jail. Okay, I am abolitionist or whatever. So long as jail's the only option for these fucking rapists. If I find out that your boy is out here sexually assaulting and doing things without consent and permission, under the jail for him, please and thank you.